Hey guys, tonight we slip back into a quieter time. When mornings began not with smartphones or traffic horns, but with the creak of a wooden door, the thud of bare feet on packed dirt, and the distant splash of river water against the hull of a hand-carved boat. You're a humble fisherman in the Edo period, centuries before Tokyo's neon buzz. Your day begins long before sunrise, when even the roosters are debating whether it's worth waking up. And fair warning, you probably wouldn't last a week doing this job. Between the aching shoulders, constant damp, and occasional surprise eel in your sleeve, this peaceful little life has its share of surprises. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Drop a comment with your location and the local time. I always love seeing where and when you're listening from. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. The sky is still a thick charcoal blanket when you shuffle outside, Geta sandals clacking gently against the wooden walkway. It's cold enough to make your breath visible, little puffs of fog drifting out as you adjust the straw cape around your shoulders. The woven reeds rustle as you move, and the world is silent except for the crickets who haven't realized their shift is over. The fishing boat, your second home, rocks softly where it's tied to the mooring post. It smells like wood, old fish, and river mud, but that's not a complaint. You run your fingers along its side like a greeting. Good morning, old friend. Everything is quiet, slow, and profoundly ordinary in the best way. The village behind you is still asleep. Paper sliding doors shut tight. No temple bells yet, and certainly no rice porridge bubbling. You know your neighbor's dog will bark once you push off, so you make a game of it. Can you slip away without setting off the sleepy canine alarm? Spoiler, you can't. You never can. The dog gives a half-hearted woof, and you grin into the dark. You push off with a practiced heave, balancing your bamboo pole across your lap, and let the current pull you. The oars barely make a sound. Edo period mornings are like that, drowsy, cold, and unbothered by your human schedule. As you float downstream, the air thickens with fog. Not the romantic, glowing type from period dramas. More like a cold, wet sheet smacking you in the face. You blink a few times, fishy water already dripping down your collar, and consider turning back. But no, fish don't wait. You sigh. Historians still argue whether the average Edo fisherman believed more in ritual or superstition, but most agree you didn't dare skip your route. Your hands go through motions older than memory. You coil the hemp rope, double-check the gourd floaters, and glance at the basket you've prepped with a faint hope of sardines, maybe river trout. You tied your lucky charm, a tiny carved frog, to the bow. Does it help? Who knows? But the one time you forgot it, you capsized in front of the shrine and had to wade ashore with a bucket on your head. So, now, frog stays. The air smells of moss and brine. You squint toward the faint glow of sunrise beginning behind the hills. That slow, golden reveal feels like a reward for enduring the pre-dawn chill. It spills like honey across the riverbank, gilding the trees, painting the reeds in soft amber. In the distance, you see another boat, a silhouette just like yours, occupied by your rival, Genta. He always acts like he invented fishing. You nod to each other in the polite way of men who have been stealing each other's spots for a decade. A dragonfly buzzes past, glittering like a flying jewel. It lands on your pole and stares at you. You stare back. This is now a standoff. You lose. It poops and flies away. Back to the task at hand. You unfurl your net, careful not to tangle it like last week when you ended up inventing some sort of fish-based performance art. The net arcs beautifully this time, a practiced sweep across the surface. You watch it sink, little bamboo floats bobbing in a lazy rhythm. It's meditative, hypnotic. You wait, and wait. A turtle surfaces and regards you with deep, ancient judgment. You try to feel wise in return, but mostly feel like you forgot to bring snacks. Still no tug. You wonder briefly if fish hold union meetings. You cast again, and this time, success. A tug. Not a strong one, mind you, more like a polite suggestion. You pull carefully, slowly, mindful of the brittle weave, and up comes your first catch of the day. One lonely, very confused-looking sardine. It stares at you like it, too, had other plans for this morning. Into the basket it goes. There's satisfaction in that sound. Fish thudding into bamboo. Small victories. Another throw, another pull. This time, 3 more, including one with a bite mark already on it. Probably a river eel, or genta. Hard to say. The sun finally crests fully over the treetops, casting long shadows across the rippling water. You flex your fingers. Already sore, the joints never lie. You might be 30. You feel 90. As you float farther out, a crane flaps overhead, its wings wide and slow like a scroll painting come to life. You pause to admire it, feeling oddly poetic for someone who currently smells like fermented carp. By now, your little boat has drifted close to the marshy edge of the bay. Reeds whisper against the hull. You plant your pole gently in the silt to steady the boat and lean back on the crate of extra nets. Just for a moment. Just to rest your eyes. Not sleep, of course. No fisherman would zuzz. You jolt awake 3 minutes later with a river snail on your shoulder. You brush it off with mild apology. And the day presses on. The boat rocks softly beneath you as the mist begins to lift. Your feet are numb from the cold water that seeped into your sandals. Again. And your hands still smell faintly of fish scales and river algae. That one sardine flopping at the bottom of your basket doesn't exactly scream breakfast, but it's early yet. The sky is shifting from soft silver to dusty pink, and the reeds part ahead of you like sleepy curtains. You dip your paddle into the still water, the surface mirroring the clouds above. The paddle strokes are easy, not rushed. This is your daily ritual. Not a race, not a competition, except of course with genta, but that's unspoken. You steer gently toward one of your favorite fishing coves, nestled beneath a gnarled willow that's been leaning into the river for longer than anyone remembers. They say a kami, a river spirit, lives here. Whether that's true or just something your grandfather told you to stop you from peeing in the water, you're not sure. But you do always nod in greeting when you arrive. Can't hurt. The water is clearer here, shallower. You can see darting shadows, small fish, moving too fast to catch with your net, but good signs nonetheless. You ready your gear with care. The bamboo pole has worn smooth from years of use, its grip molded to your hand. The net is hand-woven hemp, repaired and re-repaired, with knots you tied half asleep in the dark last week. You eye it suspiciously. You cast again. This time, the net spreads like a sleepy fan across the water. You hold your breath as it sinks, counting slowly. 1, 2, 3, and then begin to pull. This is the moment you love. The quiet strain of your arms, the creak of rope through your fingers, the resistance as something alive tugs back against you. You imagine a carp, or maybe a small eel wriggling indignantly. And sure enough, The net surfaces with a flutter of silver, a satisfying tangle of sardines, a writhing little drama in your basket. You exhale. Not bad. Could be worse. Could be yesterday. Your stomach growls in agreement. You reach for the small cloth bundle tucked beside your seat. Wrapped in a faded bit of furoshiki cloth is your breakfast. A simple bento you packed while half asleep before dawn. There's cold rice, slightly overcooked, and a single pickled umeboshi. It's sourness enough to make your eyes water. You savor it anyway, biting slowly, staring out over the lazy ripples as the morning breeze picks up. It's odd how such a small moment feels so big out here. Just you, your boat, and a lukewarm rice ball floating in the middle of the bay. Historians still argue whether Edo period fisher folk lived hard lives by modern standards, or whether the rhythms of their day, hard as they were, offered a kind of peace modern life just doesn't. You lean toward peace, except for the blisters. The blisters are deeply unpeaceful. You finish your breakfast and rinse your hands in the water, flicking rice grains into the current like an offering. A heron watches you from the opposite shore, unmoving, judgmental. You nod at it. It does not nod back. Rude. Further along, you spot a cluster of fishing boats, others from your village, all hovering like slow-moving bugs in the distance. You recognize them by shape and habit. Old Masao always smokes his pipe even while rowing, a talent you've never understood. And Tatsu has that crooked paddle he refuses to replace because the fish respect it. You drift closer to a shaded inlet where the fish are rumored to hide on warmer days. A quick cast of your pole yields a flash of silver and a sudden tug, too strong for a sardine. You brace your feet, heart thumping. The bamboo pole bends dramatically, and for a moment you imagine a giant koi, or maybe a river monster. Genta once claimed to hook a kappa, but that was after several cups of sake. After a short, splashy battle, you lift the net to find a decently sized carp flailing indignantly. You grin. Tonight's dinner just upgraded from pickled radish soup to grilled fish. The carp glares up at you, offended by its situation. You mutter a quick apology and lower it gently into your basket. The fish blinks slowly, as if reconsidering its life choices. There's a lull now, the post-breakfast quiet where the world softens again. The water glistens as the sun climbs higher, burning off the last of the mist. You lay back against the edge of the boat, hat tipped forward over your eyes. Not to sleep, of course, just resting. You jolt awake 10 minutes later, your pole dangling over the side, your hat floating suspiciously nearby. Great. A fish probably tried it on. You retrieve it, shake out the water, and sigh. Insects buzz low over the reeds. A cicada begins its endless song from somewhere in the trees, and you take that as a signal to start drifting back toward shore. You paddle lazily, the way only someone confident in their modest but acceptable morning haul can. Nothing impressive, but nothing embarrassing either. The village fishmonger won't laugh at you this time. Probably. You pause for one more cast near the lotus pads, just in case. The net lands quietly. You wait. Pull. Nothing but a single slimy river snail clinging to the mesh. You flick it back and mutter, "Better luck tomorrow, friend." The boat cuts a slow wake through the water as you turn back toward home. The morning light bathes the river in soft gold. Everything smells like wet wood, distant pine smoke, and faint fish. You smile to yourself. This is your life. Wet socks and all. By mid-morning, you're anchored near the riverbank, The mist long gone and the sun now high enough to bake the top of your head like a rice cracker. You've tucked your hat down low again, but the heat seeps in anyway. No breeze. Not even the herons want to flap their wings in this humidity. You pull out the rest of your bento from beneath a crate, where it spent the past few hours gently warming itself into a questionable culinary experience. The rice is now faintly crunchy at the edges, and the pickled daikon has begun to leak a little. You don't mind. In fact, you unwrap it carefully, smoothing the cloth like it's a treasure, because food you've packed yourself at 4 a.m. with numb fingers and one eye open is oddly comforting, like a sleepy gift from past you. Historians still argue whether Edo period fishermen's diets were limited out of necessity or guided by strict Buddhist-influenced culinary customs. But to your mind, it's simpler. You eat what you catch, or what your spouse tells you is what's left. Today, it's the latter. A few steamed soybeans and a tiny square of tamagoyaki folded like a sleepy yellow envelope. You eat slowly, watching a dragonfly skim the water's surface. It nearly collides with a frog. Neither seems particularly alarmed. As you chew, you stare at the horizon. It's your unofficial break. Half an hour or so of drifting near the reeds, letting the boat bob lazily. You stretch your feet over the edge and let them dangle in the water, despite knowing full well that river crabs love unsuspecting ankles. It's a gamble, but it's hot, and your toes are rebelling. Sure enough, 10 minutes later, you feel something ticklish skitter up your heel. You jerk your foot up, and a crab is clinging triumphantly to your big toe. It waves a tiny claw like it's conquered a mountain. You wave back sarcastically, pluck it off, and drop it gently into the river, muttering, "Try that again, and I'll eat your uncle." It's not the only interruption. Just as you start mending a small tear in the net, a particularly curious fish flings itself halfway out of the water, lands directly on your lap, flops once, and slides off again into the river. You sit there for a moment, staring after it. Did that count as fishing? No one will believe you. Again. You glance over at the other boats. Genta is struggling with his own tangled net, which has somehow formed a perfect knot around his foot. You feel a burst of smug satisfaction, which you immediately suppress. Bad river karma. Still, you might bring that up later. Gently. With lunch over and your brief break behind you, it's time to tidy your gear. You gather the empty basket, rinse it lightly, and stow your bento wrappings in the boat's side compartment, alongside a few spare floats, an old pair of chopsticks, and one eel-shaped pebble you keep for luck. Don't ask. The sun climbs higher still, and you realize your sleeves have rolled back far enough to allow a bold little patch of skin to burn. You fumble for your straw cape again, pulling it around your shoulders like a sleepy cloak. It doesn't help much. It mostly smells like mildew, but at least it shields you from further crab-based assaults. A sudden splash to your left startles you. Not a fish. Too big. Not a turtle either. You squint, paddle slowly in that direction, and peer down. Nothing. Just reeds and the vague shadow of your boat. You wonder, not for the first time, whether that ghost story the old shrine keeper told about the coy spirit who drags fishermen under was meant as a joke. You decide to take it seriously anyway. You paddle away, humming softly to keep the spirits from getting ideas. By now the heat has wrapped itself around everything. Even the insects seem to buzz more slowly. You're sweating under your straw cape, but if you take it off, the sun will roast you like a festival squid. There's no winning. So you compromise. Push up the sleeves, soak a cloth in river water, and drape it around your neck. The sensation is glorious for 2 whole minutes, until it becomes lukewarm and vaguely fish-scented. It's approaching time to return to shore. But first, you scan your surroundings for any last-minute opportunities. A shimmer near a pile of floating leaves catches your eye. You cast one more time. A hopeful toss, light and easy. The net lands with a soft splash. You wait, watching the bobbing floats like they're the most exciting thing in the world. A gentle tug. Then another. You pull, and up comes your final haul of the late morning. 3 small sardines, and somehow an old sandal. You hold it up. It's not yours. It's not Genta's. It's from no one you know. Possibly a ghost. You drop it back into the water with polite respect and pretend it never happened. As you tie the net bundle and secure your basket, the boat begins drifting back with the current. You guide it lazily, your paddle skimming the water. The village shoreline begins to take shape through the rippling air. You can just make out the tops of thatched roofs, the thin column of smoke rising from someone's firewood stove, and the wooden torii of the tiny riverside shrine where you always leave a fishtail for luck. And just then, as you let out a satisfied breath, something slaps the back of your head. You yelp. A fish. A flying fish has leapt from the water, landed briefly on your skull, and flopped into the bottom of the boat. You stare at it. It stares back, clearly baffled. After a long moment, you both decide to forget the whole thing. You add it to the basket. The boat bumps gently against the shallow shore, and you step off into the mud, sandal straps already damp and threatening mutiny. You drag the boat slightly up onto dry land, tie it to the worn wooden post that's been leaning for the past 5 years, and give it a quick pat on the side. Your way of saying thanks for not capsizing today. Not every day ends so dry. The sun is now fully out, baking the shoreline in a sleepy golden haze. The heat clings to everything. You shift your basket onto your hip and trudge toward the village path, catching the scent of charcoal smoke and dried squid wafting from someone's cookpot. Your shoulders ache, your fingers are pruny, and your hair smells like kelp. You're also vaguely aware that something has crawled into your sleeve during the trip home. Sure enough, as you reach the edge of the market square, a river crab tumbles free of your robe and lands with an offended plop on the ground. It immediately scuttles under a merchant's cart. You nod politely and say, "You win this round." A nearby monk glances at you and shrugs, as if to say, "Crab problems? Welcome to the club." The open-air fish seller's stall is already lively, even at this late morning hour. A woven reed mat offers some shade, though not enough to stop everyone from sweating like dumplings in a steamer. You spot old Sayo, the fishmonger's wife, loudly haggling over a bucket of eels. She's been bartering since the shogun had hair. Next to her, 2 fishermen argue over whether river perch or carp make better wedding offerings. You approach with your modest catch. Nothing showy, but respectable. The fishmonger, Daisuke, gives a quick nod. He never says much. His eyebrows do most of the talking. He glances at your sardines, raises one brow approvingly, then looks at the flying fish and lifts both eyebrows in what can only be described as mild disbelief. You just shrug and whisper, "It chose me." Daisuke begins sorting the fish, grumbling the usual half-jokes about slippery customers and, "This one looks like my cousin." You leave him to his rituals and step back, taking a moment to eavesdrop on the chaos around you. Genta is here too, of course. He's at the far stall, arguing over the weight of a trout he insists is at least 3 fingers wide. The vendor shakes his head, countering that Genta's fingers are suspiciously thick. a small crowd gathers, taking sides. Bets are whispered. It escalates into an impromptu measuring contest using chopsticks. You decide to let them have their moment. Nearby, a pair of young boys chase each other through the crowd, one wearing a bucket on his head like a samurai helmet. The other is carrying what looks suspiciously like someone's stolen sandal. Yours? Possibly. You're not asking. A short walk away, an elderly woman sets out trays of grilled river eel skewers, the sweet soy sauce glaze drawing flies, cats, and several hungry villagers. You debate buying one, but remember you still have pickled plum waiting at home. Unfortunate. At the edge of the market, a traveling monk sets up a folding screen and begins playing a shakuhachi flute. The sound is hollow, drifting gently through the humidity like a sigh. Everyone pauses just slightly, not out of reverence, but because it's the kind of music that makes you forget you were angry 5 minutes ago about fish weights and finger measurements. Historians still debate whether Edo street markets like this one were more important as economic hubs or social theaters, but to you, it's clearly both. This is where people argue, gossip, trade, flirt, scheme, and occasionally chase a crab into someone's hakama. Like just now. Sayo yelps as something pinches her ankle and screams something highly un-monk-like about the demon claw. You decide it's time to leave. As you head home, you feel the weight of the morning in your limbs. You've traded your catch for a few coins and a piece of dried squid wrapped in bamboo paper. Not bad. Certainly better than last week, when a cat ate half your haul before you even reached the market. You still suspect it was Genta's cat. Passing the shrine gate, you toss a fish scale into the offering bowl. It's not traditional, but you like to think the river gods enjoy the novelty. The shrine keeper gives you a nod, clearly used to your strange gifts by now. Just as you turn the corner toward your street, a familiar voice calls your name. It's the candlemaker's apprentice, holding a dripping bundle of beeswax and pointing toward your shoulder. You look down. A small fish scale is stuck to your neck. You peel it off and flick it into a bush, whispering, "Go be free." The village hums with life. Kids run past, a woman sings off-key while hanging laundry, and the old carpenter snores gently under a tree, mouth open, fly perched on his nose. You breathe in the smell of cedar, charcoal, river water, and grilling eggplant. Somehow, it's a better scent than it should be. You reach your gate. It creaks like it always does. Your home, modest, wooden, shaded, is waiting. You slip off your sandals, shake the water from your sleeves, and step into the cool, shadowy entryway. You made it through another morning, mostly dry, only a little pinched, and with your dignity mostly intact. You slide the basket onto the wooden floor just inside the doorway, exhaling like you've carried a boulder up Mount Fuji. A single sardine flips once dramatically, then gives up. Same, little buddy. Same. The house is still and dim, a welcome contrast to the sun-scorched chaos of the market. Tatami mats soften your aching feet, and the cool interior smells faintly of cedar and miso. In the far corner, your youngest child is pretending to be a turtle under a wash bucket. You nod approvingly. That's quality imagination. From the kitchen, a clatter of pots signals that someone, probably your spouse, is preparing lunch, likely from scraps you were too tired to process at 4 a.m. A voice calls out without looking. Did you trade the trout or lose it to another sandal incident? You grunt in response, which translates roughly to, "I don't want to talk about it," and head toward the wash basin. You strip off the upper half of your robe, revealing tan lines in places where tan lines shouldn't exist, and begin scrubbing your arms and face. River water is cool, bracing, and mildly fishy, just like everything else in your life. A thump outside tells you that one of your older kids has returned from morning chores, probably fetching firewood or racing kites on the sly. They burst in, barefoot and breathless, announcing that someone's goat has escaped again and is chewing on the shrine's offertory box. You nod like that's completely normal, because it is. Laundry flaps on the line outside. Someone's yukata, a particularly floral one, is tangled with your own plain robe. Again, the laundry wars have begun. You step outside to untangle them, muttering a quiet plea to the gods of linen. As you tug the garments apart, your neighbor peeks over the fence and offers helpful commentary. Your robe always loses. Maybe you should sew on flowers. You smile sweetly and ask if she's seen her chicken. She has not. You point behind her. It is currently roosting on her roof. She screams. Peace is temporarily restored. Back inside, lunch is nearly ready. A bubbling pot sends up steam and the scent of fermented soybean paste. Your spouse is at the hearth, stirring with one hand and cradling a cranky teapot with the other. They hand you a rice ball without breaking eye contact with the miso. Don't eat that one. It's for the cat. You nod and quietly put it back. Lunch today is leftover rice, a bit of grilled eggplant, and the blessed return of pickled daikon. You offer up your flying fish catch from earlier, which your spouse eyes with both suspicion and glee. It will become dinner, obviously, or possibly a story for the neighbors, or both. You sit with the family around the low table, legs folded, shoulders slumping slightly. The kids chatter. One tells a story about a frog riding a leaf like a boat. Another brags about a beetle they almost caught but didn't. The youngest insists they saw a kappa. This sparks a heated discussion about whether kappas like tofu or cucumbers more. Historians still debate how deeply belief in such creatures shaped everyday Edo life. But in your house, it mostly shapes lunch conversations. You sip weak barley tea and gaze out at the courtyard. The light filters through bamboo slats, casting stripes on the walls. A dragonfly buzzes near the well. Somewhere, a shamisen twangs faintly in the distance. Someone practicing, someone dreaming. The meal winds down, and the children are shooed outside. One is tasked with collecting pine cones. The other promptly forgets and begins trying to train a grasshopper to jump on command. Your spouse returns to the kitchen to prep the fish for later. You remain seated, momentarily stunned by how heavy your eyelids have become. The post-lunch slump is not a myth. It's a force of nature. You slowly recline against the wall, using a rolled-up yukata as a pillow, and drift into that drowsy state between awareness and full-on nap. Your fingers twitch slightly, mimicking the casting of a net. Even in half-sleep, your body rehearses the motions. There's comfort in the rhythm. Even in your dreams, the river hums. A sudden thwack and yelp outside rouses you just enough to hear. I told you that goat would headbutt someone. You smile to yourself and close your eyes again. The cicadas outside begin their noon concert, a shrill, persistent song that somehow becomes background music rather than distraction. You let it wash over you. The sun slants lower. Time stretches. The floor cools beneath you. The world softens. The door creaks open gently, and one of the children tiptoes in, places a wilted flower beside you, and tiptoes out again without a word. You keep pretending to sleep. You wake slowly, the scent of pine and earth curling gently into the open window. Outside, the day has mellowed into a soft warmth, the kind that makes you want to stretch out and disappear for a while. You glance toward the upside-down boat resting by the riverside. Your trusted vessel, now quietly sunbathing, and also possibly hosting an entire ecosystem of sleeping insects. You try not to think about it. A distant temple bell tolls, its slow, resonant chime marking the passing hours with a calming certainty. The sound floats through the village like a gentle heartbeat, steady and reassuring. It's the kind of sound that makes you pause your endless to-do list and just breathe. You decide it's time for a rest. Not a nap, you tell yourself, but a moment to lie beneath the pine trees that stand guard by the riverbank, their branches swaying softly in the afternoon breeze. You settle down on the cool grass, the needles prickling your skin through your robe, and close your eyes. The sky above is a patchwork of dappled sunlight and drifting clouds. You hear the rustle of leaves, the faint chirping of birds, and the low hum of cicadas that seem to be holding an endless summer concert just for you. Somewhere nearby, water trickles over smooth stones, adding a gentle percussion to nature's lullaby. As you drift, your thoughts wander. You imagine the jellyfish you once heard about in a distant coastal village. Those strange, floating creatures that pulse with an otherworldly glow in the dark sea. You wonder what it would be like to fish among them, to feel their delicate movements brush past your hands without harm. Historians still argue whether coastal Edo fishermen ever truly encountered jellyfish regularly, or if stories about them were mostly for entertainment. The scent of pine mingles with a faint smokiness, perhaps from a neighbor's hearth or the occasional incense burning at the shrine. It grounds you in this moment, simple, quiet, and fleeting. A soft breeze picks up, carrying with it the faintest hint of salt from the distant sea. You imagine the fish you caught this morning, now perhaps sizzling on a small fire, seasoning the air with promises of dinner. Your breathing slows. Muscles loosen. The world outside grows distant, like a painting fading at the edges. A temple bell tolls again, slower this time, as if calling you back from your reverie. You stretch your fingers and toes, feeling the cool grass beneath you. Reluctant to move, but knowing the day will continue whether you want it to or not. You rise, brushing pine needles from your sleeves and hair. The sun begins its slow descent, casting long shadows across the river. The boat awaits, tied patiently at the shore, ready for another day, another story. As you walk back toward the village, you take one last deep breath of the pine-scented air, feeling the calm of the moment settle in your bones. Tomorrow will bring nets, fish, and stories. Today, there is only this gentle pause. You step through the wooden gate of your home, the familiar creak welcoming you back like an old friend. Inside, the atmosphere hums with quiet domestic energy. Clinking pots, murmured conversations, and the occasional squabble erupting in the next room. Ah, yes, family life, with its endless surprises and small battles, softer than any tidal wave, but just as relentless. Your children are gathered around a low table, their faces animated as they argue over something crucial. Who left the miso paste out, and now it smells like a forgotten swamp? You raise an eyebrow, knowing full well the culprit is probably the youngest, who also insists their toy samurai is hungry for more than just rice crackers. Your spouse is in the kitchen, busy boiling riverweed to prepare a simple side dish. The aroma of the sea mingles with the earthy scent of miso soup simmering nearby. You pause to watch them work, the way their hands move with practiced ease, folding leaves and tasting broth, an unspoken rhythm that has become the pulse of your home. Laundry, however, remains a battlefield. Today, the yukata are out in full force, drying in the sun but carrying their own stories. One has mysteriously disappeared, and suspicion falls on everyone, especially the cat, who looks entirely innocent despite the shredded fabric caught in its claws. You sigh and help your spouse unravel a knot of stubborn rope while your eldest child attempts to referee a truce between two squabbling siblings. Family life in Edo was never simple, but it was always real. Historians still debate how gender roles shaped household duties, but here, roles blur and overlap with laughter and occasional exasperation. You find yourself both teacher and student, learning daily how to balance work, love, and a few lost sandals. A sudden crash from the corner room causes everyone to jump, just a stack of wooden blocks falling. The youngest bursts into giggles, clearly proud of the accidental chaos. You smile and reach down to scoop them into your lap, feeling the warm weight of home settle around you. Outside, the wind carries the scent of fresh pine and distant rain. Clouds are gathering, softening the edges of the afternoon light. You glance at the sky, knowing the nets will need mending soon if the rain comes. But for now, you let yourself linger in this moment of warmth and gentle noise. The miso paste smell lingers, oddly comforting in its own way. You take a deep breath, soak in the hum of family life, and prepare yourself for the evening's slower pace. The river calls again soon, but right now there's peace here. In the laughter, the spilled tea, and the quiet love that binds your little world together. The evening sun sinks low, painting the village in warm amber hues. You step outside again, the day's labor softening in the cooling air. The river, once bustling with activity, now lies calm and reflective like a sleeping giant. You breathe deeply, savoring the familiar sense of damp earth, pine smoke, and the faintest hint of salt from the distant sea. Tonight, you're preparing the nets for tomorrow's catch. The process is both work and ritual. Fingers deftly untangling knots, weaving broken strands back into the familiar mesh. Your hands move almost without thought, guided by years of practice and a quiet understanding of the river's rhythms. The wooden tools you use, simple yet perfectly crafted, rest beside you, catching the last light. You trace the grain of one, recalling how it was carved by your father, whose hands were just as calloused and skilled. There's comfort in these connections, a chain that links past and present. A soft breeze stirs the leaves, carrying the distant laughter of children playing near the shrine. You smile at the thought. They'll grow up to tell their own stories of fishing and family, just as you do now. Historians still argue how much of Edo life was shaped by community bonds versus individual toil. But standing here, you feel both intertwined and solitary, a small part of a larger current. A firefly's gentle glow begins to flicker among the reeds, like tiny lanterns guiding the way home. You pause to watch, letting their soft light soothe your tired eyes. Somewhere, a shamisen distant melody weaves through the evening air, a lullaby for the village carried on the wind. You finish mending the last of the nets, coil them carefully, and set them aside. Your back aches pleasantly, a reminder of a day well spent. Tomorrow will bring the river's gifts once more, but for now there is stillness. As darkness deepens, lanterns are lit one by one along the village streets, their paper shades casting warm pools of light. The soft murmur of voices drifts through the night, mingling with the occasional bark of a dog or the hoot of an owl. You pause at the edge of the water, dipping your fingers into the cool river. The surface ripples gently, reflecting stars just beginning to twinkle overhead. You toss a small pebble and watch the circles spread outward, quiet waves, like the slow beat of your own heart. In this tranquil moment, surrounded by the soft sounds of night and the glow of fireflies, you feel a deep sense of peace. The river, the village, the nets, and the family, they are all part of your world, moving together in gentle harmony. You turn toward home, lantern light guiding your steps. The day's work is done, and the night promises rest. Night has fully settled over the village now, wrapping everything in a velvet cloak sprinkled with stars. The cicadas have quieted, replaced by the soft croaks of frogs and the occasional hoot of an owl perched somewhere unseen. The river murmurs gently in the darkness, a constant lullaby that seems to echo the steady rhythm of your own breath. Inside your home, the flicker of an oil lamp casts warm, dancing shadows across wooden beams and paper screens. You sit by the hearth. The fire's glow soft and reassuring, warming your fingers after the chill of the evening. Tonight, dinner is simple. Grilled fish, fresh from this morning's catch, paired with steamed rice and a few pickled vegetables. The familiar flavors settle around you like a comforting blanket. Your spouse moves quietly, tending to the meal with practiced ease, while your children sit close, their faces illuminated by the gentle firelight. Stories are exchanged softly, tales of river spirits, playful kappas, and mischievous monkeys that supposedly live deep in the nearby woods. The youngest insists on acting out each story, prompting gentle laughter and affectionate teasing. You feel the day's fatigue pulling at your eyelids, but the warmth of home and family keeps you anchored in the moment. Outside, the lanterns flicker steadily, their glow reaching even the farthest corners of the village. After dinner, you help clean the dishes, the cool water soothing your hands and washing away the day's grime. The children begin their bedtime rituals, washing faces, brushing hair, and whispering good nights. You listen to their soft breathing as they settle down, the peaceful cadence a balm to your tired spirit. Before you retire, you step outside once more, the night air cool and fragrant with pine and river mist. You look up at the sky, where the stars seem impossibly bright. Somewhere, a lone cricket sings its final song before sleep. You think about the river, the nets, the morning light, and all the small moments that weave together to make your days. Historians still argue whether Edo fishermen felt connected to nature or were simply at its mercy, but you feel both, a quiet partnership forged over countless dawns and dusks. As you close the door behind you, the village settles into silence. The river's gentle murmur lulls you toward rest, carrying dreams of water, fish, and quiet mornings yet to come. You awake before dawn, the faintest light slipping through the shoji screens. The village is still wrapped in the deep quiet that blankets the world before the sun fully rises. A silence so profound it almost feels sacred. You breathe it in, savoring the moment before the day's noise begins to build again. Stepping outside, you feel the crisp morning air fill your lungs. Dew clings to the grass, and the scent of damp earth and pine fills the cool breeze. The river reflects the pale light like a smooth sheet of glass, inviting you to begin again. Today's tasks await, but for now, you take a moment to watch the slow awakening of the village. Smoke curls lazily from chimneys, lanterns flicker in doorways, and the distant calls of merchants prepare for the day ahead. Somewhere nearby, a rooster crows, punctuating the calm. You gather your gear with practiced movements, the worn bamboo pole, the carefully mended nets, the basket ready to hold whatever the river offers. Each piece holds its own story, its own history, passed down through hands like yours. You set out toward the riverbank, your footsteps light on the path softened by moss and fallen leaves. The boat waits patiently, tied securely to the dock. You slip in quietly, the familiar creak of wood beneath you a comforting sound. The water is still, reflecting the pink and gold of dawn as you push off gently. Your paddle strokes create soft ripples, breaking the mirror surface. You cast your net with care, the rhythmic motions grounding you. The river wakes with you. Fish dart beneath the surface, birds stir in the trees, and a gentle breeze brushes your face. The world feels full of possibility, each moment unfolding softly, like the petals of a flower greeting the morning sun. Historians still debate how much control Edo fishermen truly had over their fate. But you know this: each day is a gift, a chance to meet the river anew. The past and present flow together like the currents beneath your boat, steady and unending. You smile to yourself, ready to embrace the day, the river, and the quiet dance of life you've come to know so well. The late afternoon light softens as you return once again to shore. Your boat heavier with the day's catch, but your spirit lighter than the morning. The river seems to sigh with you, its gentle currents whispering promises of tomorrow's adventures. You untie your vessel, pulling it carefully onto the mud with practiced ease. The familiar sounds of the village greet you, children's laughter mingling with the calls of merchants preparing for the evening, the clatter of wooden sandals on stone, and the distant song of a lone shamisen. Your feet sink slightly into the cool earth as you carry your catch toward the marketplace. The weight of the basket, a comforting reminder of the day's work. You pass neighbors exchanging greetings, small nods acknowledging the shared rhythm of life here. At the market, your haul is met with warm smiles and gentle teasing. Stories are swapped about the size of the fish and the antics of the river creatures, the mundane made vibrant by community and shared experience. Historians still argue whether such gatherings were primarily economic or social, but to you, they have always been both. Places where life's simple joys come alive. With your trade complete, you make your way home under the soft glow of lanterns, the village settling into the hush of evening. Inside, the warmth of home wraps around you like a well-worn robe. The scent of cooking rice and simmering miso fills the air, inviting you to rest. You sit with your family around the low table, sharing stories of the day and laughter that flows as freely as the river outside your window. The fish you caught is prepared with care, becoming a meal that nourishes body and soul alike. As the night deepens, you find a quiet moment alone, stepping outside to gaze at the stars shimmering overhead. The river's steady murmur soothes you, a constant companion through the cycles of day and night. You breathe deeply, feeling the connection between past and present, between earth and water, between the river and your own steady heart. Tomorrow will come with its own stories, its own rhythms. But for now, you rest, wrapped in the gentle embrace of home and river's song. As the village slips into peaceful slumber, you let your thoughts drift softly like leaves carried on a gentle stream. The day's work, the river's murmurs, the laughter and stories shared, all settle into a quiet rhythm that soothes the mind and eases the spirit. Imagine the cool night air brushing your skin, the distant hoot of an owl, and the shimmering stars watching over you. Each breath deepens the calm, and each moment grows slower, softer, until all that remains is gentle stillness. Rest now, knowing the river and village will be here tomorrow, carrying their timeless stories on the water's endless flow. Let your eyelids grow heavy, your body sink deep into comfort, and your mind wander peacefully into dreams filled with quiet ripples and warm sunlight. Sleep well, friend. The river waits for you.